I'm the digital content director at KEYT. We're just right up the hill from here. I'm not on camera, but I run everything online. One of my mini pet peeves is when I explain people everything that I do, and then they're like, "Oh, so you do social media?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, but I did social media when I was, 12 years old, so it's a little bit more than that." As digital director, most broadcast stations, local broadcast stations, have a digital content director and maybe one or two digital producers, which entails just busting out as many web stories as you can a day, working with the assignment desk, which is kind of the gatekeeper of the newsroom. Like, they check all the emails, they get all the phone calls, and you help the reporters with their digital portions of their stories throughout the day. My responsibilities mostly lie in running our website, our app, and our social media, and our live streaming. And every day my routine starts with working with the reporters. They all have to hit a deadline for digital. They have to post online by a certain time before they pretty much even go out and get their interviews and get all the elements they need for their video. And at the very end of the day, after they do their broadcast section, then they clip their little portion of the newscast and attach it to their web stories. So I pretty much just make sure that process goes smoothly. I do a lot of troubleshooting we use WordPress. I don't know if you guys use WordPress, if you ever have. Instead of having like a web developer with coding, that would just be way too complicated. And then I also help put out web content every day. My big thing since coming into this station has been pushing for more social media, because we're a broadcast station. It's all very focused on what's going to be on TV that night. It's just the way broadcast is designed. And so they adopted digital once. You can't really avoid using social media at this day and age. So I came in and I'm like, well, how about more? And they're like, well, not yet, but maybe someday. So I do the most that I can with what I have, whether that's going out into the field. I wish I brought it, but I have a tripod. Did you ever get one of the ones that goes sideways and vertical? I should have brought mine in, but I went on. Oh. Well, I found this crazy tripod on Amazon, and it was in part so that I could have an excuse to go out with the reporters. So this story that you see here that keeps shining is not shining, but playing, was from when I got to go. I had an excuse to go see Austin Butler at the film festival. And I said, I'll just get footage for socials. And so I bought this device on Amazon that has two tripod holders, and one goes that way, and then it's like this, and the other one goes this way, so I can get footage both for the broadcast, which is horizontal, and social media, which is vertical, because nobody wants to turn their phone to look at videos anymore. So yeah, that's collecting social media, and then I use Premiere to edit them all together. And then other responsibilities are building web pages. So one of the ones that I made while on the topic of the film festival is this one, just through WordPress. This used to be an embedded Twitter page, but since X and all that, it doesn't work anymore, but just ignore that. And so then I focus on displaying our coverage and just anything that a viewer might need, all things film festival related and with the news. But my favorite part, the reason why I got into journalism in the first place, is writing. And so that's where I met Josh. I started freelancing for Newshawk so that I could practice my in-depth feature writing with such an experienced journalist. And it's been really great. And so I do this on the side, and I kind of get to do it. I kind of get to go back and forth with doing it for Newshawk or doing it for KEYT. But this story that I did over the summer with Josh, I got to do both. So I can show you how I use different multimedia aspects. I went to Cal Poly, in San Luis Obispo, and their journalism is a Bachelor of Science because it's really based on the technology and media and learning how to video edit and learning how to produce, and very broadcast focused. So I had to put in a lot of my own work to learn how to feature write, and still learning. But I've gotten a good background on multimedia journalism. So this was a really, as you can tell, like a really long story. Movie Talk doesn't usually post stories this long, but and so when Josh and I went and interviewed Ernestine, so she was I don't know if any of you went to Fiesta, but she was the Grand Marshal of the parade, and it was big news because she was the first Chumash person to be chosen in this position. And so we did a long, in-depth story on her, and she is a very colorful life. She talked for about an hour and a half. I think there needs to be books written about her. She's hilarious. But so Josh was taking pictures as we interviewed her at the Rose Gardens at the Mission. I also interviewed one of her longtime friends and an anthropologist that she worked with for the past 40 years, and he gave us this photo of her at Fiesta when she was young. And then she has a whole, like pretty much the whole Chumash exhibit in the Museum of Natural History here in Santa Barbara she pretty much helped design like half of it. And she was body cast for like, how long was it? I think a couple hours. She was just in this position while they made this body cast of her. She's just done a lot of things for the community and to preserve Chumash history and her family story. And so in addition to the pictures and the writing, I also wanted to incorporate video because, that's the panel I was talking about, bottom left. The panel, yeah. Because in addition to, there's print journalism and there's broadcast journalism, but now there's this kind of in-between social media where anybody can kind of be a journalist, and like if there's a fire going, you just go outside, take a picture of it, and be like, there's a fire up by my house, and that's, people are like, oh, there's a fire, okay, next. Like that's the news, or it's some of the news, at least on social media. And it's whether you're on Twitter and you're reading it, or you're on TikTok or Instagram and you're watching it. So I just wanted to make sure to incorporate all different aspects of multimedia journalism into the story, especially since it was so long, so that if you're bored of reading, you can watch a little bit or you can listen. This was just an a video bit that I thought went better in her voice than it did in my writing. This is her explaining how when she was young, she was kind of ashamed of her Chumash heritage, and how when she played cowboys and Indians, she wanted to be the cowboy. Let me see if did we fix the volume? No.
Volume on the red box in front of you, you turn it to the right on that one.
Okay.
I heard nothing but Chumash, the language. And I don't speak it because I was too busy playing and having a good time. I even wanted to be the cowboys, not the Indians, because the Indians always got killed and the cowboys were the heroes. My mother saw me out there playing one time doing that, and she said, "You're stupid," in Spanish. My mother could speak California Spanish. My mother was a linguist, not me. And I, didn't know what she was talking about. She said, "You're an Indian, what are you doing?" And that was the end of that discussion. But I still kept playing anyway. And then I'll never forget in the theater when we were little kids, the cavalry was coming to rescue the day, and we'd all be like that. You'd hear us all rumble. And we were just 10 years old or under, because I was raised with them.
So I added that video portion because my biggest motivation for this piece was to really have her personality come through. And while, I wrote about her personality and I wrote about, one thing that I was taught at Cal Poly in a feature writing class that I took was show, don't tell. So I was trying to describe the way that she is rather than saying, oh, she's funny. Like anybody could be funny, but how is she funny? And by adding video, that just further emphasizes just, you can really understand her personality better and just make the story come to life more with the video aspect. When I set up my video camera, I was taught the rule of thirds, where when you interview somebody, have them, on one of the lines. Yeah, there's a different word for it. And have her look across so she should be looking that way. But Josh was on this side and I was on the other side, so she kind of moved around a bit. But she was just incredible. And then down towards the bottom, I included an audio portion. So this was the anthropologist I was talking about. The way that they met was also an incredible part of the story to me. So Ernestine was studying at City College. She wanted to be a nurse. And to graduate, she had to take an elective. And so she chose Indigenous Studies. And she was like, that should be easy for me. And in her final story, she wrote about her mother, and her professor, who I think still works here, was so impressed that she took her to the Mission Archives. And in the library, the Mission Archive library, John Johnson was like in there studying for his dissertation, and he was literally studying Ernestine's family, because her family used to work with an older anthropologist, and so he preserved a lot of her family's history. And so John was literally studying her, and Ernestine and her professor came into the library look for more information on Ernestine's family. And they asked him, like, do you think you can help? He was like, I think I know a little bit about that. And so then they'd just been kind of partners ever since. And what's funny, so they made a documentary together, and this is his office at home. And right here you can see, it's pretty far out, but that's Ernestine right there. It's the cover of their documentary. He's like, I always have her looking over at me, judging me. So I thought that was sweet. And this is just an audio section of him talking about what Ernestine is like.
She tells it like she said it. I actually visit her almost every week. I go to the farmer's market, bring her things from the farmer's market. And I tend to visit, on the day I go to the farmer's market, I usually go visit her. Yeah. And we have conversations about different things. I find out what's going on in her life, what issues are concerning her at the moment. I respect her greatly. She's a fighter. I just sometimes wish she made me more diplomatic.
I thought that audio section really stood out to me because it was really sincere, and you can hear it in his voice how much she meant to him. And so that way, if you're reading the story, if you get tired of reading, you can hear it. Or if you wouldn't read and drive, but like if for some reason you're just tired of reading, you can listen to it or watch it in the videos. So then, in addition to this long piece that I published through Newshawk, I also got to do a broadcast piece for it. So I wrote, and I pretty much did everything here except for record it with my voice, because I'm not on-air talent, so they didn't want somebody, they'd be like, who is this person on TV right now on our station? A lot of our viewers are very particular. So we had one of our reporters, Karen, just read everything that I wrote. But the package, I got to film, edit, produce, write, just so that you can kind of contrast the difference between a long feature written piece versus what it would look like on the news.
And now let's feel like Historical is making history.
And for the first time, a Chumash elder was honored as the Grand Marshal of the parade. News Channel reporter Tania Cruz Orduña has a peek into the impactful life of Ernestine Ignacio de Soto.
It was a shock. I had no, I have to confess, I didn't know it was the Grand Marshal.
Ernestine Ignacio de Soto grew up attending fiesta on the lands where her Barbareño Chumash ancestors once lived. Now, at 84 years old, she is the first Chumash elder to be the Grand Marshal of the Fiesta's historic parade.
Ernestine DeSoto, we are honored to have you as our parade grand marshal in 2023.
Ignacio de Soto led the parade down Cabrillo Boulevard Friday afternoon as Grand Marshal. She represented the history of indigenous culture within the celebration of the Spanish colonial period.
I'm not going symbolic, I'm going Ignacio.
Ignacio de Soto carries a family name that traces back through 6 generations of Chumash heritage. Her mother, Mary Yee, was the last native speaker of Barbeño Chumash, one of the original languages spoken in this area.
And I don't speak it because I was too busy playing and having a good time. I even wanted to be the cowboys, not the Indians.
The Grand Marshal says she was ashamed of her race growing up. Now Ignacio de Soto embraces her culture and her family history.
I'm just who I am, like it or not, just suck it up.
For the past 50 years, she's been an advocate for the preservation of Chumash history and culture. She helped curate the Chumash exhibit in a local museum. She co-produced a documentary about her family. She produced a children's book of her mother's story, and she presented in a symphony speaking in Barbareño Chumash.
But I'm still moving. You know, my mother always said I wasn't a good sport.
In Santa Barbara, I'm News Channel reporter Karen Rusaluña.
The clapping at the end was the anchor at the beginning, Beth, because she was really excited that my piece had been finished. She's really sweet. She's like the mother of the newsroom. But yeah, they caught her clapping on tape, which is funny. But there you can kind of see the difference between, different formats of storytelling. This is for TV, and the other really long piece was for print. I mean, now it's digital, but it's essentially print in a way. So for what you want to portray in your story, it's challenging to kind of shift, because obviously here it takes a lot less time to get the story than if you go through and read the long format. So I really wanted to make sure that the most important parts came through. And this is going to be a similar thing when you move to social media too, because obviously, as journalists, we want to get the full story. We want to get every little piece of it, but for production purposes, you can't. You just, I could have made this, I would have put the whole raw hour-and-a-half long interview in there if I could have. But you just kind of want to scrape across the top of the whole story and get the essence of it, but not leave out anything to where you're altering the story or altering the information. And you also don't want to make it too long to where, on social media at least, to where people would lose interest. So it's finding this balance of, how to maintain that, journalism ethics and still being able to produce a good story in the end. With broadcast, what's really important are the visuals, obviously, and the audio. So that's one part that I had to work on a lot. Since I wanted to write, I want my interviews to be as authentic as possible, and it's kind of hard to talk to somebody when you're also, there's a camera dividing you. And when they know that they're being recorded, it's a little bit intimidating. But yeah, and then in the end, it takes a lot of time to try to filter down all of the content that you get, and what kind of story do you want to create. And that's why it's really nice to have experienced journalists like Josh at your side, or teaching you how to get through those hard times. I never made a social media post for this story, but I can show you some that I made, that I edited. So this, obviously you can see, the first 3 are a lot more organized than the rest. That's a new format I've been trying out. For Instagram Reels, can I get a show of hands how many people use Instagram here? Yeah, so everybody. So when you go to click on, this is like the first page that would come up, and it looks a little bit messy, but if you go to look at Reels, the format that we use has a little, you can't really read it from there, but a little blurb about what the video is. I don't know if you're all familiar with the story of the former UCSB professor or lecturer who made some racist comments. But I put that one on our social media, and obviously you can tell the different types of stories that get more views. For us, it's these, and also weather gets not surprising, but like a lot of views. Like this, the tornado, and then when it snowed in the winter, got a lot more than most other reels. But I can show you how I kind of put together the different elements from our broadcast for an Instagram reel, which could also be a TikTok, but my station's weird about TikTok. But yeah, so what I did was I took one of the stories that aired on our channel, and I edited it. I found the footage that I could make vertical, and I chopped up pieces of Beth reporting it on live TV. Actually, here I might have just used text. I think that's what I did here.
Okay, I can call it to the top.
I'm American, you're a Tijuana.
Thank you for being racist. Thank you.
I am very, very much against people who break our laws.
So here I used, writing rather than somebody's voice to convey the story.
And my driver, I want to report it to the police, to the DMV, and she says that she's gonna call ICE. Excuse me, you know you are private property? Excuse me? You are private property.
I work for the police. So
Okay, that's fine. You are private property.
You know what? I'm trying to find out if this is private property.
Yeah, you are private property.
You're working here. You're
Yeah,
not
I know.
based out here. Is that correct? Because I was going to say,
You are private property.
that's fine. And I reported you on it.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
I have a right to find out who my neighbors are because I live here. You don't.
Okay, but you don't have the permit to come into a private property, okay?
Arrest me.
Okay, I can
I
call it
live
to the top.
here. I'm American. You're a Tijuana.
Thank you for being racist. Thank you.
I am very, very much against people who break our laws.
My kids know, like, they always have to respect other people, so I don't think she's winning. So I accept her apology.
So in that case, I used just writing to convey the story, especially because as I was creating this piece for social media, the update came out that the police had recommended, charges. So, and while I was at my desk working on this, they were going live with, the breaking news updates. But clearly, that's a pretty hard-hitting, that's an intense story. And so the story kind of spoke for itself, I think, with the views. But so I took the elements that were collected from social media, example from the video that went viral, and then the interview with him, which came from our experienced reporters, because my position is in the station. So I kind of use whatever I can get. And then on the rare cases that I do get to go out and get the video, I'll include those as well. Yeah.
So, Lily, that's great. Like, we get to see all the different sides of how you present a story, from online, digital, to broadcast, and then social media. So that's awesome, because when I was going to school, it was just reporting. And then as I've aged and gotten older and taught, I kind of have to reinvent myself, and I have to learn on the fly, sort of ahead of whatever I'm going to be teaching. But people in this room, right, are going to be transferring to a university, and they're going to be learning these things, and they're going to want to go get jobs like you, because it's fun and it's exciting, except for Dennis, who wants to be a public relations for some corporate client and make a lot of money. But that's a side note. Can you talk about your journey, like how you went from Cal Poly, you grew up here, you went to Cal Poly, and then you got this job at KEYT, because I'm sure a lot of them are thinking about their paths and what happens in the next 5 years for them.
Yeah, totally. So I grew up in Santa Barbara, originally from New York, but I moved here when I was going into kindergarten, so pretty much grew up here. And then when I was I always loved to write. Writing was always just my thing. Was not good at math, so I knew I was on the liberal arts track. And when I was in high school, I took an AP Human Geography class, and that was the first time that I really realized, like, wow, Santa Barbara is a bubble, and I want to travel all over the world and meet all these different types of people. And I also know that I love storytelling, and so you put those two together, it kind of turns into journalism. Journalism's, I figured that out. I think my junior year of college, maybe of high school. I think the base layer for all of this was definitely storytelling. My dad is an incredible storyteller. He's not a journalist or anything. He was a finance bro, but he just the way that he can captivate a whole room, and he was always the center of any social event, just telling stories, making people laugh. It was like really inspiring to me growing up, and then mixing that in with writing, and then wanting to learn more about people, and then it turned into wanting to project other people's stories, because everyone is interesting, so it just depends how you tell the story. So all those thoughts swimming in my head in high school, and then I applied to like 19 colleges. I think I picked journalism or communications for every single one because I was pretty set on what I wanted to do. And then I went to Cal Poly, and Cal Poly isn't known for their journalism program. They're, mostly engineering and architecture and agriculture. So, and the journalism program was incredible though. It was very well rounded, and there's 2 tracks. You can either do news or PR. So journalism is for everyone. I chose news, but I wanted to get the most I could out of being at Cal Poly, so I added on 3 minors, because Cal Poly is known for all these other things. So I did, 1 minor was pretty easy. A lot of journalism, or not easy, but a lot of the classes, you could kind of double cross off classes for both the journalism curriculum and this minor, which was called Media Arts, Society and Technology. And through that minor, I got to take like a screenplay writing class, all different all different angles of media. Another one was ethnic studies, which I think is really important, especially for journalists. And then I did philosophy at the end. I added that on like my senior year because I'd already taken so many. And I originally wanted to major in philosophy when I first ever thought of, my future in high school. But I went with journalism. So with all of that, I graduated, and as I was telling you earlier, I wanted to go abroad, but my senior year was all online because of COVID. COVID hit when I was a junior. And so then after I graduated, I went to Europe for about 40 days. I did a backpacking trip with a couple friends, which is really fun, highly recommend. And then I got back, and I still wasn't really quite ready to start the job search yet. I didn't really want to grow up, and so I did a little mini East Coast trip with my dad. And then when I finally came back, I was applying for jobs, and most of what I was applying for were different multimedia journalism positions. So there was, producing or editing. There weren't a lot of writing positions, and at that time I didn't understand the difference in market sizes for broadcast. And I was applying to jobs in LA and San Diego and New York, but market sizes, for at least on-air talent, it's, like New York is number 1, LA is number 2, San Diego, I think it's within the top 10. And I was applying to all these major markets, and I was like, why am I getting rejected from every single one? But it's hard to get an entry-level job. And then, of course, I applied to KEYT, and I actually applied to be a video editor. And they had me come in, and I took the edit test, and then the guy that was in my position there at the time, the digital director, saw my resume, and he's like, she wants to write. And he had an open position, which actually we currently have open in case anybody is looking for a full-time job. I have some business cards, and I heavily encourage anybody who wants to apply. But so he stole my resume from the chief videographer at the time, and he asked if I wanted to take a writing test, and I was like, yeah. And then one thing led to another, and so I was hired there as a digital content producer / assignment desk assistant. And at first I was kind of hesitant because my whole thing was I wanted to travel, and so I was like starting and working in my hometown. It's not physically where I wanted to be, but after I started working there, I was like, okay, no, it's definitely good that I started working while still at home because I got a lot to figure out. And it was also really, one thing was really strange, working in news in the town that I grew up in. It was my second week. One of my first stories that I wrote was about a kid that I grew up with being arrested for the attempted murder of a 16-year-old. And I was like shaking when I saw his name in the press release. And I asked the executive producer at the time, I was like, I'll write this up, but can I take my name off of it? And she was like, oh yeah, you can put just which they don't like to just have a generic byline, but in that case, she was very nice. But it was weird, every once in a while I'll see a familiar name come across my desk, and it's strange, but in a way, not in that case, but sometimes it's really helpful having, a lot of contacts in the community. I have a lot of eyes everywhere, not nearly as many as that guy, but a lot of people will see something going on and they'll reach out and they'll be like, hey, have you heard about this? And it's a way to collect stories. My mom being one of them, she wants me to make her business cards that say mother of Lily Dallow so that she can go around and do investigative work. Kind of losing track, but so I started in that position a month after I started at KYT. That director that hired me left, so it was just me. There wasn't any director, there wasn't any assignment editor, which those 3 people make up our digital team. So it was just me, like this 22-year-old post-grad student who had no idea what she was doing. And then people just started coming up to the desk saying, hey, Travis used to do this. Like, can you live stream this? And I just had to teach myself a lot. Luckily, Travis left a lot of how-to videos. But so I essentially just kind of started doing his job. And then a week after he left, our assignment editor started, who also used to work with Josh. Her name is Jade. And she was just like incredible. I was so lucky when she started. And her and I kind of rebuilt the digital team from the ground up. And it was funny because she came from Newshawk, and so she was a writer. And so we kind of had this little competitive edge to our professional relationship where we'd kind of see a story come in and I'd just forward it to myself slyly. And so after 2 months of that, I finally built up the courage to be like, hey, I'm already doing this guy's job. I might as well try to get paid for it. And so I went to our news director's office, and I walked in there like my hands shaking. I pitched myself very quietly for the position, and he was like, we've been waiting for you to come and ask. And so there were a couple just people I had to talk to, but in the end, he was like, the job is yours if you want it. Just be aware that it's a managerial role. And I was just like, sure, of course, anything. At the time, I didn't fully understand being a manager. Now I really do. It's tough to deal with people. But so after 3 months of me being at KYT, I got bumped up to this director position, which has been really fulfilling. Immediately after that, I had to hire my replacement, which it's just, every step has felt like being thrown into the deep end, but I've learned a lot, having to hire people, see people kind of go through and then leave, and train people, and now working with a lot of the talent, which there's, upsides and downsides. One of the upsides was I've never felt cooler in my life than I did walking down the parade route of Fiesta next to John, oh my God. Like everywhere we went, there were cameras and they were like, John, look this way. And he'd be like, this is my boss. I'm like, yeah, I am. But I'm not. But I was just chasing after him with that crazy tripod I was talking about, trying not to have the phones fall off. And it was really fun. And he did great. Like I'll show you this. I live streamed on Instagram. And this was him just going right off the dome. If it plays. It's really blurry, but.
For the 99th Eldest Feely Historica, Santa Barbara's parade, and it has just begun. We're on Korea Boulevard. I'm John Palmentary, and the parade is about to come down the street full of floats, carriages, 500 to 600 horses. It's one of the most beautiful, historic, and cultural parades in all of America. We're looking down Korea Boulevard right now. You see the Latinas de los Flores. These are our flower girls that are going to be leading the parade, and they come down with these little baskets of flowers and they throw them. All the people who have gathered here along the side of Korea Boulevard. And then they're going to be going down, and you'll see down the street we have kids and gentlemen for some special ticketed people and VIPs, and a lot of people are up at the top buildings, looking down.
I didn't have a microphone on him.
The oldest working awards in all of California. If I stand here, I'll be part of the flower girls. I'll just throw flowers out with everybody. And our broadcast position is right here in front of Denise. Bakery. There's El Presidente, David Bolt, the best broadcast and CJ Award. And here come the flowers.
It's so chaotic. This is the best. So yeah, I had no idea what he was gonna do, where he was gonna go with that, but it was a lot of fun. And as you can tell, he's very good at what he does.
Really, if that's the coolest you've ever felt, obviously you have some work to do. That's hard to compete with, for sure. I feel, when I play John, he's literally, I don't know if you guys know him, but he cannot walk like 20 feet without somebody being like,
yeah. He loves it too, though.
I mean, no, it's not honest.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Rob Lowe would get fewer people.
Yeah.
Lily, I wanted to ask you one more question, and then I'll open it up to if you all have questions. But can you talk about the amount of independence you have at your job, how much control you have over your day? Because I know this generation really enjoys their freedom and being able to control their destiny at work. And I know when I was growing up, it was different. It was very much top down. So it's important that people are happy where they work and they have independence and freedom and they feel as though they're being creative. So can you just give us like a highlight of your day, and how much do you decide and how much do you have somebody breathing down your neck, and just talk a little bit about that news process?
Yeah. Well, it totally depends, on the people always. And right now, our news director has been out on maternity leave for a little while, so I have a lot more freedom than I usually would. But I mean, it doesn't really affect, things that I would or wouldn't do. But because I'm digital in a broadcast company, I have a lot of freedom. Especially broadcast company that, they like some of our talent would probably say that they feel like maybe corporate breathes down their necks a little bit on, how their hair is or what they can wear. But with digital, I show up with leggings and a sweatshirt every day. It doesn't matter. And then it kind of feels like you're the, have you ever seen the movie The Internship with Owen Wilson and, like Google? Like it kind of feels like you're one of those kids just coming up with ideas and they're like, okay, just let her do whatever she wants. Like, sure. Yeah, you can go to the film festival and get socials, whatever that means. So it's right now it's kind of like, you know, leading the way digitally because I feel like our generation, we grew up with social media. You know, I pretty much like shared the womb with Instagram. So I really know the ins and outs of all things digital. And one thing for me, I felt like it was just surprising when I got the promotion. I almost felt like I was like, that kind of felt easy, but it's only because I was raised with a lot of this knowledge. Like a lot of reporters will come to me and they'll literally come to me and they'll be like, I don't know where my window went. Can you please help me? And I'm like, it's right there. And to me, like, it seems really simple, but to a lot of people, it, blows their minds. It's like being the kid that knows how to work the TV remote in your grandparents' house. But as far as freedom goes, it's really about like the goals that you set for yourself, and like I said, the people that you work for, and what side of news you pick. But the goals that I set for myself are, I want to first and foremost develop my storytelling skills. Secondly, my writing, and third, it's kind of a mix of all of this. One thing that I wanted to highlight is when I was talking earlier about how I used to struggle with, filming interviews, or, still I find that I struggle with it a little bit, or filming people. It's in the end, like that's turns into one of the most important parts because the more content that you have, like the more opportunity you have to craft your story and all the different ways that you can go about it, whether it's audio, video, writing, both. And so the more content that you gather, just the more you can develop that story and make it come to life. Yeah, does that kind of answer your question?
Definitely. Do we have questions from the audience? Somebody? Let me come over there to you with the mic so we can pick it up on the camera.
Oh yeah, and another thing with like multimedia elements is kind of graphic design is fun to toy with. So here, this story was after the storms last January. This is actually the road that I grew up on East Mountain Drive. So that one was weird too. What was really funny, so the before picture, I think was taken by the county. This picture my mom took, and she sent it to me. I was like, hang on, wait. She sent me a picture that was from this angle, and I was like, any chance you can kind of move to the right a little bit and angle it this way? And so I could do this little, I don't even know if there's a name for it. It's not an infographic, but some little design, and it's through a website called Nightlab. What'd you say? Yeah. It's through a website called Night Labs. It's from Northwestern University. But yeah, just any different way to make the story stand out or make it, exciting or interactive. It's what really interests me. Yeah. Did you have a question?
Yes. I was just wondering what classes you would recommend taking, because I'm a freshman and this is my first journalism class, but to do something similar or in the same category as you, what classes to take that aren't from major specific, so other classes that kind of helped you with your job now. If you can think of anything.
Yeah. Well, what do you want to do?
I'm just majoring in journalism, and then I want to travel and just write and do that stuff when I'm graduating.
Writing kind of degree? Like I said earlier, the screenplay writing class that I took was amazing because I had never seen The Godfather before, but one of our first assignments was reading the screenplay, and I don't know if you like to read books or when you're younger, but it was like a book you just couldn't put down. I was like, this is the craziest thing I've ever read in my life. So you get to, it's kind of like reading a script for broadcast or, reading a video rather than watching it. And then of course we got to watch The Godfather in class, and it's just, you get to see the difference between written format versus visual and how you can, adjust one to be more like the other. And then, of course, writing screenplay and just different forms of writing. And then I took one of my favorite classes was a British literature class. which was actually really funny because it was a 7 a.m. class, and I literally went to my advisor like crying. I was like, I can't wake up that early. And he was like, if you get a job, you have to start at 6. You're just gonna say no? I was like, okay, I guess. And then I had strep throat like that whole quarter, but I still made it to class, and getting to do that sort of writing, like English, and literature and analyzing, and that's a different form of reading. I'm trying to think of what else. And then the ethnic studies classes I think are extremely important, especially hearing stories from voices much different than your own. Like one class I took was something like Caribbean media, my final project I did on Bob Marley. And so like hearing his philosophies and, stories that are written about him and then getting to write about him, it's just, the more writing you can do, the better. Yeah, I hope that helps. It's intimidating, right?
And now we have Dennis Daniels.
Hi, thank you for coming. This was really interesting, and thank you, Josh, for bringing her to us. I wanted to ask if you guys hire international people.
Like, if they live here?
Yes. So I'm from Sweden, and your job sounds really, really interesting, and it's something I would like to do, and it aligns with what I do right now, and I could definitely see myself working there.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think as long as you have a, workers.
I
visa.
do, yes.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I don't really see why not, but we could definitely talk about it.
Yeah, sounds good.
Job interviewing right here. Oh my goodness. Who else? Questions? Taj?
So I was looking at the website. Oh, I was
That's over here.
okay. I was
like,
looking at the
there's no
website, and I was like reading about you and trying to figure out how many articles you wrote. So how many articles did you write in the time period you worked for a news channel? The news.
I actually saw the number today. I think it's somewhere around 730, I want to say, which sounds like a lot, but a lot of them are about like this. I mean, that's all tweets, but I have better work than that, trust me. They're relatively short, and a lot of them are breaking news. Yeah. Yeah.
How many stories will you write in a day? Because 730, that sounds scary. But you're writing, what,
Depends.
2 or 3 a day, but they're short? Or can you elaborate a little bit?
So some days, I mean, now a lot of what I do is delegating and working with reporters. I don't write nearly as many as I used to, but back when I was in that position, the one that we have open right now, was anywhere between 2 to, like, at most 9 or 10. But I can show you, I mean, this is a sad story, but this is just a breaking news example. That's the whole, I mean, the ads, it's how we keep the lights on at our station, but that's about the length of it. It's 5 sentences. They're pretty quick, and of course, the more you do it, the easier they are to write. But especially for broadcast, the digital side, it's digital first, so, breaking news is always online first, and it's, we do you guys learn the inverted pyramid nice. I'm testing you.
You better say yes.
Yeah, so it's, most important information at the top and then the details down below, and so when it's broadcast, you always want to get, not broadcast, when it's breaking news, you always want to get the most important information out there, make sure, obviously, first and foremost, that it's factual. And then later on, you go in and you could update the story with details. But so they're pretty short, depending on what you want to do. But yeah, for that position that I started out in, it was a lot of press release, like writing from press releases or breaking news. And then every once in a while, when I had the opportunity, I'd always jump at doing a longer story. But yeah, and so I've been there for almost 2 years. So 730 is pretty spread out, I think.
Who else? Questions? Somebody? Karina?
So my question is, I know that you had a resume when you applied, but I've heard this term thrown around as I've progressed, and it's like a portfolio. Did you have one of those as well?
I'm glad you asked. So for our station, we use WordPress, but have you guys ever heard of Wix? It's like a similar thing. So I used Wix to make mine. I spent a lot of time on it because also I was unemployed and I loved my graphic design classes and I'm kind of a perfectionist. But so this was.
She's not kind of a perfectionist. As someone who's not a perfectionist, she is a extreme perfectionist.
Josh sent me an email last night and he signed it Joss. And I responded and he goes, "Sorry, I'm not a perfectionist like you," but he misspelled like perfectionist. I was like, I was like, all right. But yeah, and it was actually like this picture, I mean, looks professional, but my mom took it. I mean, she's a very good photographer. And the background was literally my neighbor's driveway. It's like this tall, and I'm kind of doing like a wall sit. So that was the background. And then I photoshopped, there was bird poop next to me. So it's a, at home professional photo. But this is what I made. So a little like about me section. And then, no, this is just like the first page. And then the about me section is this. You don't have to read the whole thing, but just kind of my story and a picture of me with my head above the water because it was a good pun to make, I guess. And then at the bottom here, I put my resume and my LinkedIn, and I attached them as PDFs. Or not LinkedIn as PDF, but resume as PDF. And then for my portfolio section, I have 3 different, I like to organize things as much as I can. But so I divided it by writing examples, multimedia projects, and video and audio examples. A lot of them, especially when I first started, it was all projects from school. And I can show you, like, some are still on there, I think. Yeah, Cal Poly Multimedia. It's like my senior project, ethnic studies senior project. This was a website that I coded, actually, from a Cal Poly class. I even made that little thing. But I did that in Premiere because I didn't want to learn JavaScript. But so like the pictures, and so this was one of my favorite projects. So I designed like everything, and I made my theme about tattoos just because I knew I could make it look pretty, the website. And for the photo gallery, there's like little stories. It's kind of like a photo essay. This was a lot of my friends with tattoos and their stories about them, and Kyle's like hair. And this was an audio section. If you click them, I think they talk about tattoos. This was a video, my little clickbait here. I made the, like in the video, I'll just show it. It's kind of ridiculous. But this is just like all stuff that I put. On my portfolio, I wanted to make sure that they saw everything that I've done. And this, my professor said that if you make him laugh, you get an A, and so that was kind of my goal here.
I've been a tattoo artist for 11 years, and before that, I was a body piercer. You know, some people will say that it's an outward expression of art and whatnot. I'm sure people can come up with really deep reasons, but ultimately they look cool.
Well, I break it down into age categories. I don't know how a 20-year-old could possibly think, hey, I want this on my body for the rest of my life. It's impossible. 20-year-olds are stupid.
I was 20, I think I was 20. I would say that I had a version of myself in my head, and I'm just slowly trying to get to that point.
It should be a law. Like the drinking age is 21, tattoo age should be 60.
I think a lot of people change what they think is cool after age 25, but I also think there's something inherently good about seeing the repercussions of your actions long term.
No, never. You look ridiculous. And how would it look on me 30 years from now, when I'm 62?
I think it's that you do something that you think will represent you and that will make you happy, because it probably will.
Is this your way of telling me you have one by setting up this camera and this whole rigmarole? This is how you're going to do it? Okay, you ruined my day. Great. And it's on camera. Hope you're happy.
So that was my that was one of my first packages I ever made, and I thankfully got an A. But yeah, that was one of my favorite projects. But
I need to meet your dad. He's like
he's
hilarious.
ridiculous.
Oh my goodness.
Very East Coast, as you can tell. Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that I included like all the cool things that, things that I thought were cool that I did. And when I went, because I said I couldn't go abroad because of COVID, when I went backpacking through Europe, I started just like a little Instagram account. I think it's still there. And I just kind of wrote down what we did in each area. Oh, just kidding. I guess not. But yeah, and a lot of my friends really liked it. And yeah, so.
Dennis is back with another question.
Yeah, just a quick question about that video. About that 20-year-old thing, was that intentional or coincidence?
No, that was coincidence. That
Really?
was just crazy that it happened that way.
That's genius.
Yeah, well, I was 20 at the time when I filmed that, so obviously my dad was
That
trying
makes
to
sense.
come at me, but
It just aligned perfectly.
yeah, I
That was
know.
really good.
I was going back through it, and I was like, oh, wait, I have to put those side by side. And there was actually a similar thing that happened in the Ernestine story, the long feature one that I did, where, I wonder if I could find it. Is it overall? Yeah, okay, so here, yeah, this part. So John was saying, I remember when I first met her, she was wearing bib overalls, and I'd never seen her dressed that way since that day. He laughed. She had kind of a very young, hippie style of the period, and then she literally, in a different interview that was before his, she's like, he'll call me the hippie. He's the hippie, not me, him. He's the one with the beard down to here. And she also brought up the overalls in her interview. But sometimes it just, things just align. And so, like, the more that you get people to talk, the more probable it is that something like that will come on. Yeah, that was coincidence.
Who's next? Cinder. Cinder's in my online class, and she's gracing us with her presence. She's a local celebrity in her own way.
So, Lily, where do you see yourself, let's say, 5 years from now?
5 years.
Where would you like to be? What would you like to be doing?
Well, honestly, I don't really know if the position has been made yet, but what I would love to do is travel and create my own kind of, it's not print, it's not video, but a mix of everything. I'd love to be able to produce like every element that I can. Obviously, it would be feature storytelling, like just one story that I focus on, and then I make all these different outlets for it, but a position that would include all of that and getting to meet all these, all types of people all over the world. That's my goal. It'd be like, when I was growing up, it was always National Geographic, like to be a staff reporter for one of them. Yeah.
And how long do you think it'll take for you to be able to get to that point?
Hopefully 5 years. But I think another thing that I'm super interested in that I hope classes come out on soon, because I would totally sign up, is more about like AI and reporting. I know that I'll take a look at LinkedIn every once in a while and just kind of see, what kinds of jobs are coming out. And at Harvard, they have it's called Neiman Labs, and it's like a like news. It's like a web news about journalism news, and they were trying to look for an AI reporter, so somebody just to report on what AI means for journalism, because I think it would be really interesting to see it, because in my opinion, I feel like AI is sort of like when the internet started out, and it's either, you get on the train or you miss it, and so I think it's going to be really interesting to see if people learn to work with AI, especially reporters, if that's ever going to play into our workflow. So I'd be really interested to see that along the way as well, and kind of figure out, where we fit and all that.
So as you move toward that vision and time's going on, do you think that you would just keep that vision in your mind and trust that you're going to do and say and be whatever you need to in the moment? Or are you the kind of person that wants to have a plan? I want to A, B, C, I'm going to do this and then that.
I can tell you right now, when I was in my Journalism 101 class in college, like first day I had my computer up, I was literally looking like steps to becoming a National Geographic writer. Like please somebody tell me how to do this. And I used to be really attached to plans, and I had a few academic advisors that told me that I was an academic advisor's nightmare, because my classes, I used to try to get all the hard ones out of the way first, but then it like messed up, especially with all the minors that I added on. I was like, what do I need left? And they're like, honestly, I don't know. And but now I'm kind of just, I really just trust that I'll, like opportunities just present themselves, and now it's less about planning because I don't know what's going to present itself. I just kind of take it when it comes. So like the News Hawk one, I never planned that, but that fell into place pretty nicely.
Well, thank you. I have a feeling you're going to get there right quick.
Thank you.
Her real answer is 5 years.
Yeah.
I understand. More questions? We have 10 minutes. Remo?
I'm just curious as to, because journalism is a really important field in society. It's got an important place, and I just wanted to know, what does your work mean to you, and what drives you? What is it that, do you have a goal that you want to accomplish? Are you just in it for the experience as it comes along, for the impact you could have? What do you care about?
It's funny you ask, because when I first started, for some reason, I never even thought about the amount of people that would see my work. And when I first read our analytics, I flipped out. I couldn't believe that there were more than 10 people out there reading my stories. And, my friends and family that would come up to me and they're like, hey, that piece that you wrote. I'm like, don't read what I write. So for me, it's really about storytelling. It's really about, I feel accomplished when I feel like I've brought the characters to life, or when I feel like I've been able to help somebody's story be heard. That's really what does it for me. And then, of course, like getting to sit back and just have it all nicely packaged right in front of you is a really great feeling. And also the connections that I make through these stories. Those are things that I really hold dear to me. Like I remember everybody that I've ever interviewed, all the stories. I think that that's what pushes me through each time, is just getting to like learn about people. Because when I was in high school, I was taking this religion class, and I remember, not that, my mission here is to create world peace, but it was like, hypothetically speaking, rule 1 is understanding other people, rule 2 is, respecting people, and then, or not rule 3, but step 3 is like they need to learn to love other people and, create a more peaceful environment. And so I was like, well, step 1 is getting people to understand. What better way to understand than to tell stories? And so does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Next. Taj, was your hand up? Anybody with more questions? I was wondering, because we have about like 8 minutes left. Did you have a question? No? Okay. If you could just give some advice. Like, we know the technical skills are important. Adobe Premiere, how to create a website, but can you talk a little bit about the soft skills, those things that you've had to utilize to get where you want? Because there's a plan on paper for everybody, but we all hit different roadblocks. So what advice do you have to people? Maybe they encounter a challenge, or they don't get the job they want at first. What encouragement advice to sort of send them off with some optimism and hope for future job market?
Well, when I first entered, or after I graduated, I guess is an easier way of saying that, I was on LinkedIn. I was like a crazy person on LinkedIn. I was connecting with people left and right. Like, I went to National Geographic, and you can just click people that work there, and I was like, connect. So for me, it was networking and just trying to meet as many people as I could, stay in contact with people from my classes. And that way, it was like I was never going at it alone. And becoming friends, or it doesn't even have to be friends, but like getting an advisor, or just forming some connection with people that work in the industry that you want to work in, and having somebody to kind of bounce ideas off of, or just having some sort of support system was really huge to me. And I lucked out with, my story at KEYT, how I was there to be a video editor, but then the director at the time was like, oh, she wants to write and I have this open position. So that just worked out. But I think it's, being really open-minded is very important, and knowing that things don't always work out, but you can find the reason for why it doesn't work out. And, you can make that a reason and go off of that to get to where you want to be, if that makes sense. I used to be a huge believer in everything happens for a reason, and I still am, but now it's more of like a make everything happen for a reason. And I think that's really helped me. Whenever I hit a wall, I'm like, okay, well, that happened because it wasn't meant to be, and I'm supposed to do it this way. It's about trying to build some perseverance,